For a huge fan like me, the FNAF timeline seems pretty straightforward, with the exception of any time that anything new ever comes out. Ever. However, for the average Joe that doesn't know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's, it's not just confusing, it's an unknown language. In an effort for you guys being able to avoid having to watch one of the hours-long cinematic masterpieces that exists out there on YouTube, sorry, my chair is really squeaky, I thought I would make a video of the timeline, but very simplified, so you can just get the information that you need to know, without actually knowing why we know it, because that's not entirely necessary for someone who's not a huge mega fan and just wants to know what the lore is. So let's start from the beginning, shall we? So sometime back in the 1930s, there was a singing bear show called Fredbear's Singin' Show. Now apparently this was a thing back in the day, just actual bears singing at like carnivals and stuff. So this potentially maybe is the start of what we all have come to know as Fazbear Entertainment. Fast forward to the 1970s. So there was a man named Mr. Murray. Mr. Murray dies and his son Edwin Murray inherits Murray's costume manor and meets his wife Fiona, who was at the time an employee there. After inheriting his dad's company, Edwin goes on to create some of his crazy inventions that he's been wanting to make for a while. He gets married to Fiona and has a child with her named David. Now eventually, while their son is still around toddler age, Fiona tragically dies in a fire at Fall Fest, which is a reoccurring event in the Fazbear universe. So Edwin creates the Mimic, an endoskeleton that can shapeshift, kinda, and mimic the behaviors of other people or characters, and it can shapeshift kinda to fit into any costume that it needs to fit into. Now Edwin somewhat teaches this thing to behave like Fiona and uses it to babysit David. However, this thing sort of just gains a mind of its own and actually believes itself to be Fiona, mimicking her perfectly.
Fiona, did you make this?
I baked it myself. For David's special day.
Great job.
While all of this is happening, Fazbear Entertainment, who seems to have a history with MCM, even going back to when Edwin's father was running it, is secretly running Edwin's business into the ground. He's stealing their employees and also paying Edwin to create early blueprints for Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. One fateful day, David tragically passes away on his birthday, and the Mimic convinces Edwin to create Mimic 2, a second Mimic to mimic David and have the family back together. However, Edwin doesn't actually know how to do this. In fact, he doesn't even know why Mimic 1 worked in the first place. So he essentially copies the Mimic program of M1 to make M2, and then he takes the Mimic 1's chip out of the endoskeleton and then puts the Mimic 2 chip into Mimic 1's endoskeleton, and then he puts Mimic 1's chip into the computer that we later know to be called MXES. Mimic 2 begins to act like David just as planned. However, Edwin is overcome with grief and rage and attempts to destroy Mimic 2, only for Mimic 2 to return, because apparently it always comes back. So it rebuilds itself, kills Edwin, and then tricks a Fazbear technician into coming to the MCM facility and gaining executive permissions on something that is called a data diver, later known as a Faz wrench, and kills or leaves this Fazbear technician on the brink of death, takes the data diver, and then walks off into the distance. We don't really know what happens after that, but what we do know is that eventually Mimic 2 and the MXES computer containing Mimic 1 fall into the hands of Fazbear Entertainment. William Afton and Henry Emily are two men in the... William Afton and Henry Emily are the co-owners of Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated. William has 3 children, Mike, Elizabeth, and David, ironically. One day at Fredbear's family diner, William's son David gets bitten by the Fredbear animatronic after his brother Mike and Mike's friends, who are all bullies to David, put him in the mouth of Fredbear as a harmless prank, because who would ever think that a performing robot at a children's restaurant could cause any harm? Well, David's skull gets crushed, he ends up in a coma, and eventually passes away. He was bitten because of a mechanism known as the spring locks in certain animatronic suits in the universe. I won't go into too much detail, but when moisture hits them, they snap shut. The spring lock suits they double as animatronics and wearable suits for performers. You wind up the spring locks, you can wear the suit. However, when the spring locks are shut, it is in animatronic mode. So anytime a part of a person or an entire person is inside of the suit or around the suit, when the spring locks snap shut and go back into animatronic mode, it can be very bad. One day outside of Fredbear's family diner, Charlotte is locked out by some bullies, and William goes outside and kills Charlotte in the alleyway. He might have actually already been outside, but he kills Charlotte. The security puppet, an animatronic that Henry created to protect children from leaving the restaurant, specifically his daughter. The puppet gets out of the restaurant, goes to Charlotte, but it's raining. The puppet short circuits and dies with Charlotte, and her soul enters the puppet. At some point, William creates clown animatronics known as the Funtime animatronics. The purposes of the Funtime animatronics are, as you would expect, being rented out to entertain birthday parties, and also luring and capturing children. Why? Theoretically, to harness the power of life itself, at least according to the books anyway. Unfortunately, one day while William wasn't looking, his daughter Elizabeth approached Circus Baby, the leader of the Funtime animatronics that were designed to lure and capture children, and Elizabeth gets killed by Circus Baby. His intentions backfired on him, and his own daughter got killed. Then, in the year 1985, William decides to kill 6 children and hide their bodies inside of the animatronic suits at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. One for Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy, aka Fredbear, the same Fredbear that is already possessed by David Afton, who got bit. The animatronics are now possessed. William killed these children wearing the Spring Bonnie suit, one of the 2 main Springlock animatronics, being Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. One fateful day, William returns to destroy the animatronics once and for all, for one of a few different reasons that we're not going to get into right now, but the point is he is attempting to destroy the animatronics and or harness their endoskeletons. Whatever he's attempting to do, he fails, because the spirits come out of the animatronics, back William into a corner, and as he sits there either laughing or crying scared, it's kind of hard to tell in the 8-bit minigame, the spring locks snap shut, and he gets spring-locked and crushed inside of the suit and falls to the ground. And then the employees and higher-ups of Fazbear Entertainment seal him away in the back safe room of Freddy's. Then one day, sometime in 2023, 2 righteous dudes who are looking for props for their new horror attraction, Fazbear's Fright, based on the long-forgotten mysteries of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, find Springtrap, that he is now called, not knowing its true nature, not knowing that it is William Afton. Now let's go back a little bit. At some point, William melted down the endoskeletons of the main animatronics from Freddy Fazbear's Pizza into one molten metal known as Remnant, which in this universe, Remnant essentially grants immortality. It's spirit metal, it's soul metal, it's a magical force in this universe. It gives things life. So he injects the liquid Remnant into the Funtime animatronics to make them alive, but they are very confused and angry because it's multiple souls mixed together and not just one soul. Now one day, William's son Michael goes down into Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals to investigate. Mike discovers the secrets of this place only to be tricked into his own demise by his own sister, who now resides inside of Circus Baby. She tricks him into getting his organs and skeletons scooped out of his skin by a device that is supposed to scoop out the endoskeletons of different animatronics. Then all of the Funtime animatronics combine together, wear Mike's skin as a suit, and they use it to escape the facility. One day, as Mike's skin slowly rots and turns purple, the animatronics vomit out of his skin sack. He falls to the ground. However, he does not die, because apparently the scooper was also a remnant injector, meaning he is now a living skin sack. Still himself though, somehow. That part doesn't really get explained. It's fiction, so we're gonna roll with it. Haunted by the sins of his past, accidentally killing his little brother and then discovering what his father had been doing all these years, he sets out on a mission to go and get a job at every Fazbear Entertainment location that is hiring, tampering with the animatronics in hopes of setting whatever remaining souls are still trapped free. One day in 2023, he ends up taking a job at Fazbear's Fright, the horror attraction, reuniting with his father, and burning the place down in hopes of finishing him for good. This does not work, however. William survives. So later that very same year, Mike and Henry come together and forge a plan to finish William once and for all. They lure William and whatever remaining animatronics are left, including the puppet with Charlotte's soul, to a fake Fazbear location. They trap all of them, and then they set that place on fire. All of the souls get set free, including, theoretically, Mike and Henry's, because they stayed behind as well. And William gets pulled down to his own personalized hell/purgatory to atone for his sins. Okay. On to the final chapter, guys. The part that apparently scares the life out of anyone who dares to even think about adding it into their timeline videos. Let's rewind to the Mimic, shall we? Fazbear Entertainment claims the Mimic and the MXES computer. They take the Mimic 1 chip out of the MXES computer, and they use it to make a virtual reality game in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. The purpose of this virtual reality game made by Fazbear Entertainment is to make light of the tragedies that occurred in the company's history. In-universe, there are the in-universe versions of the Five Nights at Freddy's games. Now, the story that Fazbear Entertainment puts out there is that they were all ghost stories made up from the mind of a complete lunatic, and this virtual reality game made by them is meant to shed light on things. Now, for the purposes of not making everything that I just said completely useless bullshit that doesn't actually matter, making everything confusing, we're going to assume that they're lying and everything we just talked about did happen and was not made up in universe by a lunatic. They use the Mimic 1 chip to speed up the process of making the virtual reality game, along with feeding it data from the in-universe Five Nights at Freddy's games. However, the Mimic program reacts to everything it's seeing in these Five Nights at Freddy's games, and it begins to manifest itself in the game as a digitalized version of William Afton known as Glitch Trap. It's witnessing this, it's made to mimic things, it is now mimicking the psychopath of the universe. Eventually, Glitch Trap brainwashes and enters the subconscious of the game's beta tester, Vanessa. Vanessa then goes to get a job at Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex sometime in the 2040s to 2050s. The timeline is a little bit wonky at this point, but it's further ahead in the future. Then, doing the bidding of Glitch Trap, Vanessa dresses up as a rabbit known as Vanny, and she goes and kidnaps people, kills them, does Glitch Trap's bidding. One day, a boy named Gregory that is maybe a robot / maybe a child who really likes to maybe kill his therapists, gets trapped in the Pizzaplex, and with the help of Glamrock Freddy, escapes from the Pizzaplex after destroying the rest of the Glamrock animatronics, and also in the process sets Vanessa's mind free of Glitch Trap's influence. Then, sometime later, Gregory's friend Cassie returns to the Pizzaplex under the confusion that Gregory is sending her a distress call from the basement of the Mega Pizzaplex. However, it is not Gregory, it is actually that Fazbear Entertainment locked in the basement of the Mega Pizzaplex. By the way, the Pizzaplex is built on top of the FNAF 6 location that I talked about earlier, which is also built on top of the MCM facility. Ignore that. The Mimic is down there, and it lures Cassie down, pretending to be Gregory, in the process convincing her to shut off all the security nodes, which disables the MXES computer that is now being used to keep the Mimic at bay. Once it is shut off, the Mimic escapes, chases Cassie through a labyrinth, and she finds her way into an elevator, with the real Gregory guiding her over her walkie-talkie, only for Gregory to drop the elevator, thinking it's going to be too much of a risk to actually let her come up because they can't risk being followed. Elevator drops down the elevator shaft, sending Cassie plummeting down to the bottom of the elevator shaft. And cliffhanger for the next game. That is the furthest point in the timeline that we have right now. There is also a sequel to the VR game because that's an actual game in real life. However, I don't know where that fits into the timeline. But for what it's worth, you play as Cassie's dad in that game, or a Fazbear technician, if that helps. Now, there is a lot of details that I left out of here, of course, because this video was never meant to be an in-depth explanation of why we know anything, right? There is videos for that. I would highly recommend the Game Theory Ultimate Timeline. I would highly recommend FNAF's Ultimate Timeline. Great cinematic masterpieces, informative, really cool, good watches. If you want more details on everything I just said, please check out their stuff because they're more talented than I, they're more skilled than I at making these videos. They're more knowledgeable. I love this franchise and I'm very passionate about it, and I'm very excited that there's a lot of doors open for new game possibilities, right? The lore is already off the rails. I just spent a half an hour telling you a bunch of nonsensical stuff, and that's okay. I'm just excited that there's so many possibilities to go from here. I'm sure you can tell there's so many different threading directions that this lore goes. You could choose any point in the timeline that I said to make a new game about, if there isn't already a game about it. And that's about all I have to say, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Please consider subscribing if you did, hit the like button, try and show me some support if you can. I hope I can do this professionally one day. If you want to check out my Instagram or TikTok, see me doing some stuff that's slightly different, I'll have those linked in the description and on the bio on my YouTube channel, as well as if you want to join my Discord, I will have that link available as well. And I'm only going to have more cool stuff coming for you going forward. Thank you so much for watching, and sorry that it took me so long to get this video out. Have a wonderful day, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one.